Hi, my name is Richard Curtis. I'm a solutions consultant here at Adobe, and my focus is digital imaging. There have been a whole host of new features in the 2014 release of Creative Cloud for photographers. And today, I'm going to show you some of the new features and techniques and how they can fit into a classic Photoshop workflow. The first element that we'll be talking through today is using Lightroom Mobile and working with our pictures on the go. There's a definite shift in the way that photographers want to view, work, edit and select their pictures and not be tied to the desktop as much as they have been. With the release of Lightroom Mobile for the iPad and the iPhone, it enables photographers to work on their raw files on their smartphones on the go in a much more liberated fashion. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom on the desktop. Now there's some images here that I shot on a recent trip. And what I'd like to do is work with these on my iPhone. So the first thing I need to do is to select all of the images, create a new collection, give the collection a name. I'm going to tell Lightroom to include the selected photographs that I've just selected and then synchronize with Lightroom on my mobile devices. Okay, that's now going. You can see in the top left hand corner it's synchronizing 56 photographs to my phone. I'm going to go to my adobe.com profile. Now you can see when I log into adobe.com I get my personalized view of me and my creative identity. One of those points is my photos. I can click on here and it will take me to my Lightroom catalog in the cloud. And as the photographs have been synchronized via Lightroom, via the Creative Cloud, they appear in my web view. Okay, let's go over to the iPhone. You can see there we have Lightroom and you can see there that my collection has already started synchronizing to my mobile device. I can just click on the thumbnail and you can see I get to see all of my pictures and I can scroll through them. To look at a picture, I just click on the picture itself and I get a preview. Now at the bottom of the screen on the left hand side, we have a way to select and rank these pictures. I have a star at the moment, it says 0, so it's got 0 rating. If I click on it again, I get the pick system. I'm going to use the star system because that kind of integrates to my workflow. All I have to do is drag up the screen or down the screen and change the star rating and then move to the next picture by swiping and again select these pictures. Now I really like these pictures, they were shot in Bhutan, so I'm just going to use these because I'm going to work on these in a few minutes. You can see the activity at the top of the screen where all of my edits are now going up to Lightroom on the desktop. So this is all doing it for me, I'm not having to work very hard. And you can see there I have other work in here as well. So I'm just going to go to my adjustments now and I can start opening up the shadows and the whites point. I can also change the black point and get the image somewhere where I need it to be. I can also zoom in and I can see a better resolution of that picture. Okay, so let's get back to Lightroom on the desktop. Now I've made my edits and my selections on my iPhone, so now all the edits have come through back into Lightroom on the desktop. You don't have to do anything, it's really simple. What I want to do now is show you a new feature inside Photoshop, and that's great for cutout, and that's called the focus area. If I look at these two images, by turning survey mode on, you can see that this is a much stronger picture, but I don't like this part of the scene over here. But I prefer the part of the scene over on this picture here, so I can very quickly cut this person out and replace the backdrop with this scene. And I think that will work pretty well with the focus area. So let's just do that now. I'm going to bring these two pictures into Photoshop and use the new focus area to cut out this person and drop this background in. So I'm going to right click, edit in Photoshop as layers. And now I'm going to tell Photoshop to pull this area out. Now I'm going to give it a helping hand. I'm going to use the marquee tool because I don't want this part here. So I'm not really bothered about that as part of the selection because I'm going to get rid of that later very quickly. So I use my marquee tool and use select focus area. Photoshop will look at the scene and pick out the in closest focus point and make a selection based upon that object being in focus. So I can keep my brush tool with the plus selected and just highlight the areas that I want Photoshop to fill in based upon the depth of field. Okay, it's done a great job with that. I've only got to do more, so that's going to save me a lot of time on cutting out. I'm going to output this to a new layer with a layer mask and press OK. And you can see that actually the mask needs to be changed a little bit. So I need to go to the mask very quickly and just reset my foreground background colors, select the brush. I'm going to paint with black. I want to hide this person from the scene. So by painting with black, I'm going to change the mask and paint out this area. Now I need to change the mask again to white and paint back in the sky. And there you have it, there's my cutout. Now there's one other element that I want to fix before I leave this picture, and that is the person walking out of the frame. I'm just going to create a new empty layer, and I'm going to choose the content aware patch tool. Make sure the patch tool is in content aware mode, and then open up the adaptation. In here we've got now the color, so this will now do color matching when I'm doing content aware. So let's just try it now with 0. This isn't going to do any color matching at all. I'm just going to mark the areas that I want Photoshop to blend in and drag this to a new area. So I'm going to pick an area over here. I'm just going to try the color mode, see if I can get a better selection. So while that's still selected, I'm going to go to color and put a 3 in. And you see I get a much better fill. It's actually using the color of the destination area as well as the content from the source area and blend those two together. So there we have it. There's a really nice way of using the focus area to cut things out and replace the background. Really fast, it's going to save you a lot of time. One feature that I'm super excited about in the 2014 release of Photoshop is the ability to export my adjustment layers as a 3D lookup table. Now, I like to shoot video as well as stills, and I like to give my videos the same look and feel as my stills. But I also edit in both Premiere and in Photoshop. So typically, a film grader will use something like speed grade to create a look to a film that will affect the shadows and the highlights and the color temperature and the color balance. But in Photoshop world, we just use this as our adjustment layers. So I need to be able to bridge the gap. So what I'm going to do is just open this picture up inside Photoshop and show you this great new feature. I already have the look that I want to put on this picture. It's a black and white platinum tone, and that's in another file, in another PSD. So I'm just going to open that file. And you can see there we've got quite an edgy black and white. So I'm just going to drag this out for a second. And I have in here some folders, and in those folders I have the actual processing. So I've got my color tone that I'm creating for this image. I've got my platinum effect all on new adjustment layers, and I've got a tone. So all I need to do is to take these and drag these over into the image that I want to work on, and you can see there now that I create the black and white look on the picture. Now I really like that. Now I may want to share that with other people, or maybe even sell this look. But I also want to be able to apply it on the video or on other PSDs. Now I can do that very easily now inside Photoshop by exporting those adjustment layers as 3D lookup tables. So a 3D lookup table is available under File, Export, Color Lookup Tables. And I'm going to export this in all the different formats, and I'm going to place that in a folder that I already have created. I'll call it BW Look and press Save. Let's open the piece of video footage. I can open the video footage straight into Photoshop, and you see there that I have my footage playing.
When I think of play, I think of my...
Okay, now what I'm going to do is to add that color lookup table as an adjustment layer to this piece of footage. I go to Layer, Adjustment Layer, Color Lookup, and pick up the new LUT. So on the desktop, it's called BW, and I can pick any of the 3DL, the CSP, or the cube file, pick up the 3DL, and open it. And you see there
childhood,
now,
and when I think of my childhood, I think of like when there was...
Now you see there now I've applied the same look to my video as in the still. Now it may be that actually I want to use Premiere Pro. So let's open up this project inside Premiere. So the great thing about 3D lookup tables is that they're transferable between applications. I can even bring it to speed grade if I wanted to do. So here we have the main file. I'm going to add an adjustment layer. So click on Add Adjustment Layer, create a new layer, and drag this into the timeline and just stretch that out. And I'm going to go to the effects and add what's called a lumetri effect. Here it is. Pick up the lumetri effect and drop it onto the adjustment layer. And now I'm going to pick up exactly the same process that was created in Photoshop.
To me, when I say play, it means to play pretend, you know, to make believe, to be a visionary.
And here we have exactly the same look and feel in Premiere, all built from Photoshop. That means that any DSLR filmmaker or any video maker is able to now start to grade in Photoshop and have that look applied to their edits in any application that supports 3D looks. Really exciting. So I want to show you this image and a new feature in Camera Raw inside Photoshop. I'm going to make some quick adjustments in Lightroom to this picture. So go to my development module. I'm going to go to my white point and set that white point and see where it starts to clip. And the black point, pull that black point in. But it's not really giving me enough detail in that sky. I'm going to edit in Photoshop as a smart object. I want to make it all non-destructive, and using smart objects is a great way of doing that. So now I have a smart object. You can see by the little icon on the background layer. I go into Filters and Camera Raw Filter, and now I employ the Camera Raw as a filter. Now I'm going to use my gradient filter. I'm going to darken the sky over here. So I'm pulling my gradient in. I can turn the mask on and off, but you can see there's my mask. But you can see that when I do that, and I pull in that area over the sky, I start to hit the tree as well. We've got a new feature in here, which is the brush, and I can turn the brush on. I'm going to press Shift and K to turn that on, and I have the brush. Now I can press the minus sign, and I can now change the size of the brush and paint out areas of the mask that I don't want to be part of this scene. I can also paint in. So now I'm left with a mask that's really tailorable from a gradient filter. Super cool. And I'm going to put the background, put another mask in on the grass, and just darken the grass down slightly as well. So you can see there now, here's my edit. The tree really gives some pop to the image, and it really stands out on its own. So press OK. Now it may be that I want to use my 3D lookup that I just created on this picture as well, and see what that looks like. And again, I can do the same thing as I did with the video previously, and go to a layer, new adjustment layer, color lookup, and load the look file in. And now I get this really cool kind of black and white graphic look to my image, almost like an infrared look. So you can see how that 3D look is highly transportable between different images, and it's really easy to create using Photoshop using your adjustment layers. Okay, so I want to show you a super cool way of adding watermarks to your pictures. Now you see here, I've got my watermark as a PSD file, and I have multiple pictures that I'd like to apply the watermark to. So let's just open those inside Photoshop, right click, edit, smart objects inside Photoshop, and this will bring all 4 pictures into different canvases. Great, they're all here. Let's go to the first one quickly. So I'm going to go to Place Linked. And in Place Linked, I'm going to open up the signature and place the signature onto my picture. Just somewhere there. And I can do exactly the same thing on the others. Now the great thing about using linked smart objects is that I'm not embedding the actual physical PSD into this file, it's just a reference to it. Okay, so here we have it. So there's my edit done. Now I'm reusing my signature in multiple places. The great thing about the 2014 release when using linked smart objects is the ability to use something called layer comps. So I'm going to go and edit the content of this linked object. And you can see down here I have layer comps. Layer comps are really recorded positions of elements in my PSD. So I have a white background with black text, a white background with purple text, and different options depends on how I want my logo to look in different places. Close that down for a second. The great thing is that these layer comps now come through as part of this linked smart object. So now I can apply them in the properties panel, and I can say, well, actually this wants to be a white background with black text. If I go to my other ones over here, it may be that these need to be half transparent with white text, and maybe another one has something else. So you can see I'm using the same PSD file across multiple files with different look and feels that I can use across all my comps. And the beauty is that if something changes in that smart object, I just need to go back into those PSD files that are using it and update them. Really simple, really easy. So it means that you're not locked into a logo that you've used for years. You can refresh your logo on different pictures and also have different layer styles as well. So really super cool. Okay, one of the last things I want to talk about is the perspective warp that came into Photoshop for Creative Cloud just before 2014 release. So I'm going to edit this picture inside Photoshop. One of the problems when you're comping images is that the images that you're trying to bring together will have different perspectives. And that can be quite difficult to achieve in just standard Photoshop. So with Photoshop for Creative Cloud, we've got something called perspective warp. Let's take our train here. Our train's in a separate layer. Again, it's a smart object, so it's editable. And I can just go into my Edit, Perspective Warp, and then in Photoshop, just draw the geometry of the train. And then I'm just going to match up the areas of the perspective to the perspective grid, and then tell the perspective grid to actually move the train and make it fit on the track. And there we go. A super cool way of using perspective warp when comping elements together in a Photoshop file. So that we think that's going to save artists that do a lot of compositions a whole lot of time when they're working with perspective in their pictures. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is Behance and how we can use Behance to share our content and get feedback from others inside our creative community. And this really helps us get better at our craft and give us new ideas and be able to start collaborating with other people. Okay, let's set this picture here. I'm going to share this on Behance. I'm going to make a new work in progress to start collaborating with the community and with people that I trust to give me some good feedback. So down here on the canvas at the bottom, I'm going to share on Behance. It's also available on the Share on Behance on the File menu. I'm going to create a new work in progress. I'm going to put two work in progresses up, one black and white and one colour, and just see what the reaction is from people that I trust. Okay, so I'm going to call this, this was in the Peak District, so I'm going to call it Dovedale, and I can give it some tags, and I can say Peak District, Dovedale, please help decide on the colour or black and white. I'm going to make it visible to either everyone or private, and then I'm going to press continue. I'm going to skip this for a second, but I can promote this on social networks to really raise the profile of this picture. But then what I also want to do is add another revision to this. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer using the colour lookup that we looked at before. And I'm going to bring up a P3D look I used. I'm going to use that from the desktop, and I'm going to give it a kind of really cool and edgy black and white. And again, I'm going to go into my Behance and share on Behance, just using a little icon on the bottom of the screen. Make a revision. I'm going to choose Dovedale and then continue. Again, I can then share that out with the community. Now the great thing is I can review this on my iPad, or I can actually review it straight to my desktop using the new Behance work in progress. So you see here I can upload content or capture the screen, but I can click on that content and I can look at my revisions directly in my desktop with this new panel. So you can see how I've got my colour version and I've got my black and white version. So now if I go to my iPad, I can pick up my Behance portfolio wherever I am. I can just log in there and it'll log me into my creative identity. I can then go to me and go to my work in progress, and I can see exactly the same work in progress here on my iPad or on my iPhone. So you can see I'm always able to get my content wherever I am, when I'm on the go or when I'm at the desktop. So that's only a few of the features available in the 2014 release of Photoshop for Creative Cloud. And we think it's a great release, and we think it's going to get you really started. Thanks very much, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.